Disney Springs has officially opened to guests again, and we've got a first-hand look at all of it. Stay tuned to see what a reopened Disney World looks like. Hey everybody, it's AJ for Disney Food Blog. All right, Disney Springs reopened yesterday and our team was on site to see just what protocol Disney has put in place to keep guests safe. We also saw what's new, what's different, and we stopped by everything that opened, which, by the way, is many of the third-party, non-Disney owned stores and restaurants at this time. Next week, several Disney-owned locations will be opening, and we got an idea of what this newly reopened Disney World looks like. So let's start with the entry procedures and new protocol. Now, when we visited Universal City Walk last week, the parking lot was manned by attendants that were spacing cars apart. Now, we did not see this at Disney Springs. All the parking was self-parking, and when we arrived, all cars were being directed to one garage. We were told that if parking reaches capacity, they'll have a one-in, one-out policy. When we arrived, there was also only one entrance to Disney Springs open, and all guests were being directed there. We were really early, by the way, so they may have opened other entrances later in the day. Disney has stated there will be several entrances to Disney Springs at the Orange and Lime garages, along with Hotel Plaza Boulevard, Pedestrian Bridge, and the rideshare location. As you approach the entrance, you'll see signs warning you of the risk of entering Disney Springs, essentially stating that Disney has established protocols to promote guest safety, but that there is an inherent risk of exposure in public places. So it says, quote, "By visiting Walt Disney World, you voluntarily assume all risks related to exposure to COVID-19, unquote. They also have signs posted listing the new regulations that are now in place for all guests and required for entry. This includes face coverings, temperature screenings, and social distancing. So temperature screenings take place at the entrances to Disney Springs using a touchless thermometer, just like they used at Universal Studios. There are markers all over the ground to keep guests 6 feet apart. You'll be seeing these all over Disney Springs. And in order to enter Disney Springs, your temperature needs to be under 100.4 degrees. Screenings are conducted by Advent Health staff, because it's not Disney if it's not sponsored by somebody. So there is a cool-off tent station nearby if you do register a 100.4 degree temperature. You'll be rechecked after a few minutes, but if you still register a 100.4 temperature or above, you and the rest of your party will be turned away. When we arrived, we got through very quickly because there weren't many people there, like I said, but this could get backed up as each person needs to be checked. Generally, though, it's much faster than a bag check line. Face coverings are required in Disney Springs, and you should plan on bringing your own with you. There is a very limited number of disposable masks at the temperature check areas. These are considered a last resort, and you should not expect there to be masks available, so bring your own. All right, other safety protocol. Disney has stated there will be increased cleaning and disinfecting of high-traffic public areas. There are plenty of sanitizer and hand wash stations around Disney Springs for guests to use, including at the entrance to restaurants and shops. Guests will hear occasional announcements via the loudspeakers with reminders regarding distancing, hand washing, etc. You'll also see many signs posted around Disney Springs encouraging this as well. In addition to social distancing markers on the ground to manage lines, there are also markers to indicate which side of the road you should use. Arrows mark which side of the walkway you should walk on based on direction. Lids have been removed from trash cans, so you don't need to touch them to throw away your garbage, and we've been questioning whether or not water fountains will be operational. We found that they were in Disney Springs. Cast members have received extra training that included information on PPE, that's personal protective equipment, safety protocols, and how to interact with guests with your hands and eyes so that you seem friendly. Cast members, by the way, are provided with 3 reusable masks, but they can use their own with some stipulations. Gotta have that Disney look. Now let's go into shopping. Currently, only third-party non-Disney owned stores are open, but as of May 27th, World of Disney and the Marketplace Co-op, both Disney owned and operated, will open, along with Disney owned restaurant Deluxe Burger. All stores are limiting number of guests allowed in the store at one time, practicing social distancing. There are markers to promote distancing in lines outside the stores, promoting the use of cashless payments. Uniqlo is encouraging self-bagging and mobile checkout. You can order items ahead of time and pick them up in the store to reduce the amount of time you spend inside. Their checkout area also had those plexiglass barriers between guests and employees. We saw this in a few other locations as well, like restaurant check-in podiums. If you want to pick up a new face mask while you're in Disney Springs, Vera Bradley is currently the only store we saw selling them, and they're $8 there. And if you're looking to buy hand sanitizer, we only found it at Basin in a little 3-pack for $20, though Ron Jon Surf Shop typically carries it. They sold out today. Talking about dining, so we checked out both table service and counter service locations around Disney Springs, along with a few kiosks to see how things are being handled differently. Social distancing markers can be found outside restaurants. These keep guests 6 feet apart, and that means those lines can get really, really long. The line for Chicken Guy went pretty far back there when it first opened, but it didn't take us too long to make it to the front and place our order. Most kiosk and quick service locations had a designated employee who would bring your items to you when they were ready. We saw this at Starbucks, Joffrey's, and Chicken Guy. Starbucks even had a new limited time welcome back drink to celebrate the reopening. You can read all about it over on DisneyFoodBlog.com. The Boathouse did have their to-go bar up and running in the afternoon, so you can still get a drink and walk around Disney Springs. Now, let's talk about that for a second. You are allowed to remove your mask when dining, and that does include walking around with a drink. You're expected to only remove your mask while you're taking a sip or a bite of something from a grab-and-go location. Otherwise, you should keep that mask on. We did still spot tables and chairs placed outside nearby dining locations that do not have their own designated indoor seating and have not noticed any areas where they've been entirely removed. Inside restaurants, you're asked to wear your mask until you are seated at your table. All servers and waitstaff are wearing masks. That even includes George Miliates of Wine Bar George, who stopped by our table while we were dining. And reservations for table service locations are encouraged. All these restaurants are operating at a limited capacity, remember. They need to space out guests between tables, so wait times can be a lot lengthier than normal. So if you want to eat somewhere, be sure to get that reservation. All of our reservations that we had today were seated pretty much on time. Now, Wolfgang Puck had a wait of 45 to 60 minutes when we dined there around 11:30, so that'll give you a little idea of how quickly those wait times can build up. Everywhere we ate had paper menus, though Frontera Cocina, Wine Bar George, and Polite Pig also had QR code menus set up if you preferred to use your phone to view their menus. The paper menus were being disposed of after each guest. Every table service restaurant was also using real glassware and silverware, though some opted for disposable napkins. Now, some things are no longer self-service. That's an important thing to note. At Polite Pig, Earl of Sandwich, and Chicken Guy, we noticed that the soda machines or self-serve sauce stations that are usually open to guests were being manned by restaurant staff to reduce high touch points. As we said, employees around Disney Springs are wearing masks, though glove use seems to vary between restaurants. But all locations had strict safety protocols in place that included frequent hand washing, wiping down chairs between each guest, and sanitizing pens between each use. As we expected, menus are somewhat smaller than normal. Wolfgang Puck and STK were operating with much smaller menus, and the Boathouse removed their clam bake from the menu. Polite Pig currently doesn't have the Gideon's Bakehouse cookie. The bakery is still making them in Orlando, but you have to go to Gideon's Bakehouse itself to get those bakehouse cookies, at least until things start to return to normal. At restaurants with indoor and outdoor seating, we were given the option of where we'd like to sit. The exception was at STK, where they only had outdoor seating at this time. Just like at retail locations, cashless payments were encouraged. STK even had a credit card machine that you operated yourself. Now, only a few locations, including Sunshine Churros, told us cash was not allowed. So let's talk about our overall experience. Overall, all of the necessary precautions were there, but it wasn't in your face. In fact, when we were dining at the Boathouse, things felt largely normal if you could overlook your server wearing a face mask. We even saw Mickey balloons being sold, which was a nice return to normalcy for us. Cast members are around to answer any questions you might have, and servers were quick to answer any questions we had about new safety protocols. All of the cast members who spoke with us felt that things went smoothly and that they had enough time to train for the new setups. All signage with health and safety procedures were clearly displayed, and floor markers to space guests 6 feet apart were basically everywhere that crowds could form. Generally, it seemed that guests were following all of the new protocols put in place, and crowds weren't quite as large as we were expecting on the first day. Now, we did see a few folks walking by with no mask on, or they had pulled their masks down. So FYI, that is happening, and we're not seeing huge crackdowns from Disney, but I wouldn't risk it if I were you. You never know what could happen. Now, everything, again, is operating at limited capacity. Even the Disney Springs hours are reduced to 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., and it'll be that way for some time, we think. So what does that mean for the parks? Well, Disney should be submitting a proposal on reopening, including a potential reopening date in the very near future. And while we don't know when that will be just yet, we can assume that many of these new health and safety protocols will be adapted to the parks. We do know that Universal Orlando is probably submitting their proposal and reopening date today to the governor. Now, our dining experiences across Disney Springs were relatively similar, and we expect the same type of policies regarding social distancing, capacity, and sanitation procedures to carry over to the Disney-run restaurants inside the parks, resorts, and Disney Springs. Disney's already said that when the parks open, capacity will likely be reduced and some things may not be available. That follows our experience at Disney Springs yesterday with longer wait times at restaurants due to reduced seating. It seems that Disney Springs is going to sort of be a test run for the larger park reopening. So we will keep going. We'll keep headed to Disney Springs. You know, we're going to be there every day just to check things out and bring you all the latest news and updates. And we'll let you know if there are any developments, any new protocols added, etc., etc. Thank you guys for listening, and thank you for watching. It was really exciting to be in Disney Springs. Our team had a blast seeing each other again, and we're so happy to be back in Disney World reporting for you. As always, this is AJ for Disney Food Blog, and we'll see you real soon.